Welcome to another episode of Coffee Pump, guys. On today's episode, we're delving back into the film industry. We have on Kauthar Abdulalim, who is a Kenyan filmmaker and producer based in Australia. Her achievements include a compelling and award-winning short film, The Ninth Tower, a film based on the hard lockdown incident that premiered at the Academy Award qualifying 2021 Melbourne International Film Festival, won the award for the best short film at the 2022 VMC Film Festival. She played vital roles as an impact producer in ABC's E016 and a production manager in SBS's Our African Roots and Who the Bloody Hell Are We in 2023. Now with Black Sand Pictures, she's focusing on long format content and feature films, series. She's now established herself in Kenya and is soon to be a global phenomenon. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Well, welcome to the Coffee Pump podcast.
Thank you.
Clearly it's Saturday morning. We're still getting everything aligned.
And I just want to let everyone know that despite the fact that I'm on the Coffee Pump podcast, I do not have a cup of coffee with me.
You have an equivalent caffeine drink, which you've refused to hold up because they shouldn't be associated until they sponsor us. Mm-hmm. But Kuth, how are you doing? Are you nervous?
No.
It's the highlight of your career. You should be...
You know, I was like, when I was young, I used to watch the Coffee Pump podcast. I used to, say to myself,
we're not that old. So, I want, for those people that don't know you, could you
People don't know me?
Everyone knows you. For the few people who've been stranded on the island of Monte Cristo for the past 10 years and have just discovered YouTube and you, why don't you give us a brief introduction as to who Kauthar is?
Wow. So when people ask me that question, I actually don't know who I am. So
fair enough, because you're always evolving, right? There's always new stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think one thing usually defines a person. I think we're a culmination of so many things.
Correct.
But I think professionally, which is what you're really asking, is I'm a filmmaker, producer. I have a production company called Black Sand Pictures, which we founded in Australia. Yeah. It's about 3 years old. And alhamdulillah, now we are in Kenya, back to our roots.
Which is what I want to touch on. For those that may not know, Kauthar is actually from Meru originally.
Yeah.
Why did you abandon us? I want to understand how you got to Australia. Let's do it this way. Let's take it chronologically. Let's look at your past, work towards your present, and look towards the feature film we're going to do with Shah Rukh Khan and I, and you directing it in the future.
With you?
Exactly. I don't mind being I don't even mind being an extra in that, by the way.
Okay.
Right.
Extra is fine. I can,
Tree number 10. Sajid, come on. So let's start. So originally from Meru.
Yes, from Meru. Essentially grew up on the slopes of Mount Kenya, a beautiful little town, very pristine, cleaner, fresh air, as you would know.
So may I ask this question? I don't know if it's out of 10, but have you ever chewed Mira?
Oh my God.
We can edit that out. You have. I know that laugh. It says you have. You have. Haven't you?
Listen, we're keeping this professional.
Sorry. Mira is like green chilies, for those that don't know.
Yeah, it's a vegetable.
It's a vegetable, exactly.
In everyone's backyard's it's just no biggie.
Yeah. So,
Meru, yeah. Yeah, like I was saying, beautiful, cute little town. But not much really happening there other than...
Very quiet.
Yeah.
Very small. And how long were you there for?
So I grew up... Well, I was in Kenya for 15 years of my life, for the first 15 years of my life. But for my high school, I actually moved to Nairobi, but my parents were still in Meru.
Really? You moved to Nairobi?
Yeah, I was here for 2 years.
Which school was that in?
Aga Khan Academy.
Yes. Okay, now I remember that.
Yeah.
And, okay, was film ever something that was ingrained in you from an early age? Were your parents ever into that side, that career? Is that something that you had explored very... I mean, I want to join the dots to see how that came up.
Yeah, so I think films and cinema was a huge part of my childhood and growing up because, I mean, think about you living in Meru. There is no other form of entertainment other than just the TV.
Correct.
We still don't have a cinema in Meru.
We don't.
So inshallah, hopefully I can start the first cinema.
That's what's up, yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously, for our feature film.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I think I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood movies. And I was always very like enchanted by that world. Just I was intrigued, and I was just, it was like a window to the world outside of Meru town, essentially. And so I knew that I couldn't necessarily be a part of that from a career sense of like from a career's point of view. But I still loved it. Like I still enjoyed it. It was like I started to watch films from a very young age, beyond just the way an audience would. Like I would notice like shots, and I'd be like, oh, this continuity is not right in this frame. Like that cup moved slightly towards that end.
Which people don't usually point out.
Yeah.
They just absorb it. So the fact that you're looking at the cinematography at such an early age, that's pretty interesting.
And those are the things that, when I start noticing details that within the frame that take you away from the story, I realize that I have something within me that understands what you would need to do to kind of retain an audience and keep them engaged and entertained. So I feel like it was a bit natural for me to kind of be drawn to this because I was just so obsessed.
Was there a movie in particular that during your childhood stood out to you?
Yeah.
Don't tell me Dil Chahta Hai or Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, please.
No, it's Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Actually, yeah. Vish has posters of that in his room. Okay, that's a classic.
So I have a full circle story about Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
I want to hear it. Oh.
So I was probably between 6 to 8 years old, like around just under 10 years old when the film came out. I just remember seeing a lot of trailers and promotions on TV, and it's Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol coming together. It was such a hype. And so I remember my dad coming home from work one night, I think it was a Friday night, and he's like, all right, we're going to Nairobi. And I'm like...
Okay, wait. You're going to Nairobi to watch the movie on a Friday night?
On a Friday night from Meru, which takes like 4 hour drive.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
So 6 p.m. he comes home, he's like, we're going to Nairobi. So we pack up and leave, me, my mom, my dad, and my uncle. We get to Nairobi at about 10-ish. We catch the 11 o'clock screening. We watch the film. We have dinner after the film. And we drive back to Meru.
Okay, so I can tell that film was something that all of you loved.
Yeah, all of us.
And was that something you did on a regular basis, go for films from Nairobi?
Not necessarily. I think that was one unique, that particular film. And also because my dad's a huge Shah Rukh Khan fan. So it was like genetically transmitted to me.
Have you met Shah Rukh Khan?
Look, I don't like to publicize certain things.
Yes, she has. Show me pictures. I want to see pictures. We can off the air.
No, look, I mean, I'm certain that he's met me in his dreams.
Inshallah, it'll happen. I see it happening.
Yeah, inshallah.
Okay, so you grew up in Meru, moved to Nairobi for high school. I'm assuming then the next step would be Australia. Somewhere comes in the mix. How did that come about? Why did you guys decide to move to Australia?
Well, moving to Australia wasn't really my decision because I was 15 at that time. Yeah. So my parents felt that they wanted to kind of create a better life for us. I think my mum was the main driving force behind it. She knew what it was like to be a woman in this community, and she just wanted something very different for her daughters. I was the eldest of 4 daughters at that time.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, something different. How do I say? Not by choice, but just because of the cultural norms, it's very different for the exposure you get. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And my dad's also the kind of person that I think he supported my mom. It wasn't easy. It was very difficult. But in hindsight, when they do look back, I'm sure that they look back at their decision and they feel like they made the right choice at the right time. So that was a decision that my parents made. And when I did move to Australia, I was always a bit of a misfit, even in Meru. I didn't necessarily belong to a particular community. I always felt like a bit of an outsider, whether it was in my primary school or coming to Nairobi in the high school and then moving to Australia. I'm not Aussie. So again, I'm still a misfit. So I always felt like, who am I? Like, what is my identity? What do I stand for? What are my values? Because they kept changing, and the more I was exposed to the world, the more I really had to find myself and ground myself. Because a realization that I had, and maybe I'm jumping too far ahead.
No, that's fine.
A realization that I had later down the track, before I got into the film industry officially, was that I knew that I needed to know who I am as a person in order to be successful in this industry. Because as a director and as a producer, you and I could make the exact same film, or a film about the exact same issue, but the film will be completely different.
Correct.
It's simply because of our lived experiences and our perspectives on life or that issue.
And I will say you are in a incredibly blessed position, because looking at it and looking at you from a subjective third person perspective, you have Indian heritage. You also have the Arabic/Islamic heritage. Combined within that whole sphere now, you also have the African heritage, because you're born and brought up.
Not just born and brought up, but from my mom's side of the family, we actually do have Kenyan heritage. And that's one of the reasons why I felt like I was always a misfit, even within the Indian community here, because like my mom's side of the family wasn't always accepted the same way that my dad's side of the family was, simply because we were half caste from my mom's side. And that was something that, was like, it was so toxic, growing up, because
that's the flip side,
you wonder, like, why am I being treated differently? And then when I grew up and I understood, and, my parents talked about certain things and talked about the dynamics, it all made sense. And I'm just like, okay, you start understanding and the pieces of the puzzle come together and it all makes sense. And then that kind of just helps you move forward and really put all that behind you, because now you've resolved all of that.
Fair enough. I mean, the flip side, what I was getting to, is that ultimately when you tell a story, the more colors you have on your palette, the more creative you can be. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you have all these representations, and now you have the Western side, growing up in Australia, you have so many touch points that other people don't have.
Yeah.
Like if you're just if you're born in a small town in Kenya and you're just exposed to one side of a cultural coin, versus Kuth, who has all these touch points, I think that really does stem into the storytelling mechanics of who you are, of what you put down on paper, because you have all these. It can be negative, it can be positive. Would you agree that definitely helped you then as a filmmaker later on? Definitely.
I think one of the things that you when you watch content about certain communities that's created and produced, they're not always good because they lack substance and they lack layers. So for example, if there's a character who's Muslim, it's always a one-dimensional character. They don't have layers. Correct. They don't have history or depth to them. So you're right. I think the more I've had these different experiences and influences, the more I think my perspective has been enriched.
Yeah, I agree. So touching back now to your move to Australia, tell me about the first few years. How was that cultural shock?
I don't think it was too much of a cultural shock.
Okay.
I think Nairobi, the culture that I sort of, in terms of school and stuff, I feel like it was easy to transition into the school system because I was predominantly at school. Right. It was easy to transition into the school system and you understand contemporary culture was still the same. Everyone's watching the same stuff.
True.
References are the same. So it doesn't really matter where you are. But it was more to do with the world outside of our school and how sometimes that impacted within the school. And that was mainly to do with, how Muslims and minority communities were represented in the media. Whenever the political climate was tense, especially around discourse around Muslims and certain things that were happening politically around the world, it would directly affect our day-to-day lives, whether you're in school or you're working, it doesn't, or in your neighborhoods.
You'd experience that.
Yeah. So for me, that was different because growing up in Kenya, we're so multicultural.
True.
That we're friends with people from all different faiths and different religious backgrounds. So your identity wasn't necessarily your faith. It was like, who is Sajid and do I like this guy? Not because Sajid comes from this community or because he's Muslim. Like my friendship would be determined based on the person rather than
No, that's true, and I would agree to the fact that we do have that. Obviously, no place is perfect, but what I've heard is within certain contexts of first world countries, stereotypical norms do get attached to certain people based on their cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
But overall positive experience moving to Australia?
Yes,
at the start?
Definitely. But like I said, I think for me, the first few years, it was really about figuring out my identity.
Yeah.
And also as a teenager, when you are growing up, you do start to question things about life and everything that your parents taught you, because now you're starting to make decisions for yourself. So I remember for me, one of the biggest battle was around my faith and really discovering God again and finding God again for myself, because you are being raised with certain morals and values and you do things which become cultural and customary. But now you're at a stage where you ask, okay, why do we pray 5 times a day? Or why do we need to fast? Why do I need to give a certain portion of my savings every year? So you really start to... Yeah.
I'm joking.
So, I think, growing up, like those were kind of the philosophical questions I was asking. And also, I remember like death was something that I used to think about a lot, like, between the ages of like 15 to 18.
Yeah.
And I just used to wonder, is there really a life outside of death? Like, is this, like, what is our purpose in this world? Why are we here?
I mean, as a teen, that's a lot of, how would you say it, as foresight, insight into what's meant to be, because a lot of people don't think that way. If I relate it to people who I look at within my generation, at that age, we were not the same. So there is a lot of maturity on that part. And maybe what I want to ask is, for a person that's still not sure what their purpose is, what were sort of the steps you felt that led you to discovering these elements that were important to you and which ultimately defined who you are today?
Well, the thing is, I actually had to derail from the track, so to speak, in order to really come back and discover it for myself, because I reached a point where I was like, I'm rejecting everything you taught me.
Yeah. Because
I want to rebel and I don't think you're right and you don't know how to explain things just because it didn't make sense to me. I just wanted to be like, no, this doesn't make sense. So I had to kind of go my own way and kind of go through my own journey of like soul searching, essentially. And had I not done that or gone through that, I wouldn't have actually understood and valued those principles that were inculcated within me growing up.
Okay, fair enough.
So you kind of
have to go through it.
You have to go through. It's your own individual journey. There's no like formula. But I think, as parents, like if you were to have a child, you would obviously instill the values that you found beneficial for you and the values that you believe to be true to you.
PlayStation is superior.
Yeah, you
don't buy Xbox. Stick to console gaming. Those kind of.
Oh my days! I think I'm in the wrong podcast.
You know this was going to come. Sorry, but I understand and I appreciate that you if you need to understand where you have to be in life, you sort of have to find your own path. You can look at people for guidance, but ultimately it's you who has to walk it, right? Fair 100%. Enough. Now, I want to understand how the transition happened.
I don't know why I'm laughing. Your smile. something not right about the smile.
Trust me, these are all legitimate questions. I'm not trusting.
You're too shifty for me right now.
Well, don't worry. This is a very mature podcast run by two very mature folks.
Yeah. What's the time again?
So,
Yeah.
serious question right now. Education.
Yeah.
Film. How did that come about?
Film education?
Yeah, so because you had some formal studies in that element, right?
Not quite.
Okay, maybe you could talk to us after high school, what you sort of went through.
So after high school, I knew that I wanted to get into filmmaking.
Okay.
Like I just knew it because I had done a few like subjects in high school, like media.
Yeah.
And I was just, I loved like editing. I was doing a bit of animation. Like I'd made a little cute animation assignment about Earth and Mars falling in love. And then the love story didn't happen because Earth died due to global warming.
Really?
Earth was like coughing and was wearing masks before masks was a trend. Poor little Earth.
That's foresight, maybe into what was happening.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try and find that animation somewhere because the interesting.
Can we pop it up in here in the podcast?
We'll try.
Yeah.
But you know what the interesting thing is about this particular animation? I actually had a dream about it 2 years before I made that animation. And I actually painted that as like just a painting about Earth and Mars.
Are you a good painter?
Listen.
Okay.
Give me some brushes, give me a bit of like water and some paint and, I'm Picasso.
Fantastic. Okay, so I see with that. Maybe it's was dad a painter, mom painter? Like it's a very artistic sense. Like it can't be all from Kuch Kuch Hota hai. And what was that movie we were talking about?
Kuch Kuch Hota.
Sorry to sidetrack. Okay, so you had that.
So I had a dream about this love story between two planets and I painted it and then 2 years later it became an animation.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane.
So I kind of dabbled into a few different like media projects in school.
Okay.
And I knew I just really loved it. I did photography and you learn sort of the principles of like framing and, that kind of stuff, lighting. We developed actual photos like using film, which was so cool in the darkroom. Like I just loved those subjects.
This was in high school?
Yeah, in Australia, yeah.
That's pretty amazing, the fact that you have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just knew by the time I finished like my final year, all of the courses that I had applied to in university were related. They were all film and journalism and media related, and I got accepted into every single one of them.
Amazing.
But I did not take it on.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't take any of those courses on because it was a challenge for me to convince my parents at that time that this was a career that was going to be respectable and it was going to be something of value and it was going to be something that was worth them making all the sacrifices that we made from leaving Kenya, coming to Australia.
What were they asking you to consider maybe as an alternative?
Well, my parents, like, they were open to, it wasn't a typical engineering or doctor.
Yeah.
Like, it was like anything else, but not this. Because I think it was also difficult for them to understand that industry. They didn't really know what that industry was like. They also wanted to protect me because, at the end of the day, I am a girl. And you do hear of stories where women and men get exploited in this industry. So I think it was also a form of protection on their behalf. And they also wanted to protect me culturally because they knew that if I get into this industry as a Muslim woman, I would have to kind of compromise on certain cultural values if I wanted to be successful and climb that ladder. So I think a lot of it just came from a good place and a lot of it, the other part came from not really understanding the industry. So it was a lack of awareness.
Ultimately, they want to protect you from the unknown, right? And
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a normal parent thing to do.
So how did you convince them? Was it a bet they lost?
No, I convinced them. So the first 6 months after high school, I did absolutely nothing. I was working at a takeaway shop, like a part-time job, serving souvlakis. They were really good souvlakis, by the way.
6 months, eh?
Yeah, 6 months did nothing. So my routine was literally I would just go to the gym, and I had this part-time job, and I did absolutely nothing else. And then when we hit the 6 month mark, my parents were like, okay, just do something. It doesn't matter. Like, just do something. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm interested in like architecture. But I didn't have the right units to apply to that course. So then I got into like a diploma of interior design and decoration, which it had architectural subjects within it. I did that for a year and a half, and I mean, I was doing it, but I knew this is not a career that I will be happy in, and I knew that I'm not going to be thriving in. So during that year and a half, I was talking to you about the soul searching. That's where I think I really found myself. I found God, and I found a purpose, so to speak. And I think I also developed as a person. I became more mature. And by the time I came back to my parents and said, you know, I don't want to finish this diploma, I've applied for a documentary filmmaking program. It's a 6-month program. It's not formally film school, but it's just testing the waters. And I said, they only accept 8 students a year, and I'm one of the 8 that got selected. And actually, I bribed my dad. So it was Father's Day, and I took him out for breakfast. We had French toast. He paid for it, of course. And I was just like, you know, as a daughter, sweet talking your dad, you know the right strings to pull. So I think I did a bit of that. And then he was just like, you know what, just go live your life, do what you want. And I was more mature by then. So I think there was a lot of trust.
Trust as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that experience though, the 6 months program?
So that's where I felt that I knew, okay, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. Like I knew it's in my blood. Like I just knew it. Like every time I would learn something about cinematography, lighting, I was just so like hands-on with it. But I think the realization came like during that program. I was like, I'm not ready to be a part of this industry yet. And 2 things that I discovered by the end of that program was that 1, I needed to understand my culture and my heritage, because the kind of stuff that I wanted to make was mostly revolving around representation of Muslims. And I felt like, yes, I grew up Muslim and I practice certain elements, but I don't have the academic backing, nor do I have I don't have the eloquence to even like explain certain aspects of it, because if you are going to be in that position, you will be questioned, and you do come off in a sense like you do have some authority, because you are dictating how people see life and how they see the community. And so I felt like I needed that strong foundation behind me, just for myself, not for a career point of view, just for myself, so I can be more confident as a person when talking about Islam or Muslims, or if I am referencing anything, cultural in that sense. So that was the one realization. The second realization I had at the end of the documentary filmmaking program was that I don't want to specialize in documentaries. And the reason for that was because I felt that if I want to impact lives and change people's minds about Muslims, they're not necessarily going to come and watch a documentary about us. I don't want to be preaching to the crowd. So I felt that scripted format is the way that I need to go, and kind of steer away from the factual and documentary space.
Fair enough. In fact, I would agree with that. Yeah. When was the last time you watched a documentary?
and that's
you made the right decision.
That's the reality. And not to say that I don't want to make documentaries. I think there's certain stories that require that format. But as more to do with like my purpose behind why I'm even in this industry is more to do with I just want to celebrate our culture. I want people to get to know us, our community, our culture, and I think a good way to do that is through scripted content, something that's a bit lighthearted. It makes it more accessible, and it's not too hard hitting, and it's just a nice way to kind of allow people in.
Which is what you did with Salma. and the city.
Summer season.
Summer season. So was that the first project you worked on?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about the first project from there that you worked on.
Yeah. So once I finished the 6-month doco filmmaking program, I actually went off and did a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies.
Yes, I
So
mentioned that. Yeah.
yeah, I went off completely on a different tangent, and
How long was that?
about 3 to 4 years, I think.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How was that experience? I mean, that's very unique, to be honest. I've not heard of many people pursuing that. How was that for you overall?
I think it was probably the best thing that I ever did for myself personally.
This was in Australia?
Yeah, it was in Australia.
Fantastic.
I actually moved to Brisbane for 1 year because I wanted to study under a specific professor. He used to come to Melbourne, and he used to run workshops and seminars, and I just knew, like, if I'm going to do an Islamic studies degree, it would be under his supervision.
Okay, so you did that for 3 years.
Yeah.
Bit of a segue now from filmmaking.
Yeah.
How did you come back into that, the filmmaking aspect?
How I came back to it. So towards the end of the Islamic studies degree, there was an internship opportunity that our state screen agency was promoting, and it was an internship for post-production placement.
When you say state screen agency, that's sort of a government-backed institution that,
Yes.
again, they have call-outs and they're looking for folks.
Yeah, and they give funding, and they're the ones who fund projects, and whether it's development, production, post.
Fantastic.
And internships, placements, they have all kinds of initiatives. So we have a state screen agency and a federal screen agency. So the state that I live in is Victoria, and this screen agency, there's Vic Screen, and then the federal government agency is Screen Australia, which essentially covers all of the states.
Okay, interesting. So there was something that they put out that caught your attention.
Yes. Actually, they found me, funnily, because they were looking specifically for Muslim creatives.
Interesting.
Because the documentary that the placement was the placement was for was a documentary about how these Australian Muslim artists combat racism and Islamophobia using their art. And so they wanted to create pathways for people, Muslims and creatives from the Muslim community, to kind of work on this documentary.
That's actually pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That they've taken that initiative.
Yeah.
That's very unique.
Yeah.
Go Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, so you then got to dip your toe back into that. Mm-hmm. Was Salma the project that you worked on with them? Or?
No. So the project that I worked with them was an ABC documentary called E016.
Yes.
And I became an impact producer on that.
What is an impact producer? Just to create awareness, or?
Impact producer, how I like to describe it is essentially, let's say you create a product and it will just sit on the shelf, right? So like if you make a film, people will hear about it, they might watch it on TV, and then after that the next film will come, and then people forget about the other one. So an impact producer essentially tries to extend the shelf life of a film. And not just that, but try and create a campaign around it where people can engage with the themes of the film on a much deeper level, rather than just watching it. So instead of just consuming it, you're now engaging with the themes. So the themes for that film were to do with racism and Islamophobia. And so we created like study guides for high school students to watch the film, and then there were certain sets of questions that they would make them think about, racism, Islamophobia. What does that look like? And you're essentially creating change on an actual deeper level, because people are not just watching it, but they're now interacting with it. So it becomes an active exchange.
That's actually pretty interesting. So you finding ways for people to engage with your product in different ways. It's not just about social media marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. After that, then, did you transition?
So while I was doing my internship, I also made a short film, which was my first short film, called Found. Found was about a Muslim woman's experience with Islamophobia. So at that time in Sydney, there was an attack that happened in one of the cafes. It's called the Sydney Siege attacks. It kind of was. obviously horrific and massive in the news at that time. And Muslim women who used to wear the hijab would be targeted. You would hear stories of women literally their scarves being pulled, spat at, like pushed off trams, and like really dangerous things happening to Muslim women. And there was this thing about, constantly, like whenever Muslims were referenced in the media, you would always hear radicalization, terrorism. Like it was Muslim, and those other words, radicalization, terrorism, was synonymous with Muslims and Islam. And I was just like, I want to change, because how I feel my community is experiencing life right now is Islamophobia. So I wanted to bring Islamophobia to the forefront rather than talk about radicalization or terrorism. Okay. And how I decided to do that was through depicting a Muslim woman's experience, literally just living her life. The film is so simple. It's about this young woman going to a cafe to catch up with a friend, and you just see her journey from her apartment to the cafe and what happens to her, on that journey. And we shot it so simply. We used a GoPro camera.
Really?
Watch the film and then tell me where we place the camera. This is a little trivia for you and the audiences, so a little bit of an exercise. It's available on my Instagram. So it's a less than 10-minute film called Found.
I'll get the
Find
link.
Found.
We can put that over here. So how long did it take you to create Found?
Found didn't take me that long, actually. Like, it didn't take me that long. Like, we shot the film in maybe a day or two.
Really?
Yeah, like.
And financing for that, was it self-financed?
It was. So we pitched that project under a program that one of the local councils was running for. They were funding 4 short films, and we had to pitch an idea. So we pitched that idea, and we got some mentorship as part of that. And the team kind of came together because there were other people who wanted to learn other filmmaking skills. So we were all like very like...
It's a collaborative, creative effort. Correct. If you don't mind me segueing, to touch base on what you mentioned regarding what women of the Islamic faith were experiencing, is that still very much the case in Australia today? Do you have isolated incidents still? Is it very mass spread? What's sort of your experience now? Because obviously you're a woman of Islamic faith. How are you dealing with those aspects in Australia?
I think it's different for me because I don't wear the hijab. So, for the women who wear the hijab, they might experience it differently. It's getting better, but when things do happen, it feels like we're back to square one.
Square one. One step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, that's the situation. And even as we speak currently, I know, like I'm in Kenya right now, but I know that there's been something that's just happened a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago. And, like we have there's a forum called Islamophobia Register, an organization called Islamophobia Register Australia, and they collate data regularly of any Islamophobic attacks, and there's reports that are published annually about what progress we've made, and year after year, it kind of feels like we're almost still in the same place. But the thing is, my experience might be different, but then when you read data of recorded incidents and reported incidents, I think it just highlights how big of a problem it still is.
So there's still a lot more left to be done. And I guess with what you're trying to do as well is tap into the minds and hearts of folks through a much easily absorbed medium and tell that story. It's sad to see, but I mean, here in Kenya, we do hear about these incidences as well. Not necessarily against Muslims in particular. I've heard Sikh men who've been harassed for wearing what they're doing, what do we call it? The pug? What's the right way? Like Sikh men wearing the turban, they get harassed. So it is a problem, but it's still there, which is what you're trying to say. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Sorry to sort of.
No, I think this is really important because it's really the foundation of like my purpose, you know, because I could just be making films about anything, but I think what gives me meaning and drive and motivation is because I have this purpose to really change people's minds and influence hearts. And not just for others to see us, but also for us to see ourselves represented in an authentic way, because we're tired of seeing ourselves showcased as just, you know, the same old stereotypical way.
Right.
Like our lives are a lot more, you know, enriched and diverse and dynamic, and, you know, we have so much within.
So much more.
Yeah, and I think I just want to be able to kind of bring our stories to life. So, that is my, obviously, combating Islamophobia and trying to change that narrative. That is a huge part of, like, the work that I'm doing. But I also have this other aspect of just celebrating our culture and our lives and, you know, all of our successes.
It has to be a combination of both, right?
Yeah.
Negative and positive. We take it that way.
Yeah.
Now, from your experience with UC Monsters, you took that, and is that when you wanted to decide to do a web series with Salma? Was that what you wanted to focus on now?
So what happened is after I made Found, I had already started working on another project. I wanted to make a feature film. I was like, I'm ready to make my first feature film.
Yeah.
And then I had one of my mentors, I had a chat to him and I'm like, I have this great idea and I want to make a feature film. And he's like, okay, feature film's gonna be a bit more challenging. Why don't you make a web series first? It doesn't have to be of the story that you want to make, but just make something in the same genre just so you can test your skills and, you know, just get that experience, because feature films, it will take time, but, you know, for you to even raise the finance.
There's a lot more moving parts.
Yeah.
Compared to dabbling into web series. And I guess your mentor was right. It's get your feet wet, try how a web series was, because it's sort of a mini film in that way.
Exactly.
And did you follow the same format where you went to the government entities to raise funding for that project?
Yeah, so I then I completed my internship, and before I completed my internship, I'd also completed Found, the first short film.
Yeah.
That film got selected to I guess screen at festivals, including the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne, which is where my Kuch Kuch Hota Hai circle moment comes back, because that's where one of the actresses from the film was present there, and I got to meet a lot of the Bollywood stars that came, and my film won an award there.
Yes.
And as a result, I actually went to India because I won a trip to India. I spent a couple of days in Mumbai, and I just got to get a feel of the industry there. And when I came back, I was like I'm really ready, like, you know, to kind of go all in. Because prior to that, you know, I was still like starting to test it and I was still trying to figure out, do I want to do this full time? But when I did come back, I was like, yep, I want to do this full time. So I was finishing off, I think, my degree, my final year that year, and I registered my company, Black Sand Pictures, in 2019, even though it was officially launched much later.
Yeah.
I knew that, like, I want to have built my own slate. I want to have projects under a brand that is going to represent me and the kind of work that we want to do. And I knew that I wanted to essentially have control of ownership and IP over anything that I produce. So I registered my company and I started working on Salma's season. Initially, it was with a different production company because at that time we had applied for development funding, and so it was with another production company. Then eventually, Black Sand Pictures got the rights back.
So a couple of questions before we get to Salma. Mm-hmm. Number one, how was your experience in Bollywood?
I think we'll need a whole new podcast just for that.
So
it was good and bad. I mean, not bad, but it was good and enlightening.
Let's talk about the bad.
I didn't say bad, I said enlightening.
Let's talk about. Okay, talk to me.
Look, I mean, I understand. You know, when I went to India, and I was just like, I understand why our parents are usually against us pursuing these career paths, because even though I was there just to observe and learn, there were people who were trying to take advantage of me, even though I was not trying for anything. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
I was just there to be like, hey, I'm excited. I want to come on set. I want to see what it's like. And yeah.
Without saying much, okay, I sort of see. I have heard rumors they can be very maliciously intended individuals there. But then again, on the flip side is they seem to know what they're doing. I had a former colleague who worked in a marketing agency, and they were looking to create adverts. They were told, why don't you go and try your luck in India, because they've got very many studios, the cost is much cheaper. And he was telling me, compared to the Kenya film scene here, just for shooting an advert, the types of studios they have, the efforts, the quality of work, it is.
100%. I mean, you don't become the world's like biggest film producing industry without real talent, you know, and for sure. So I think credit where credit's due, but I think it was more so not to do with the craftsmanship or like the industry, but it's more individuals that I happen to cross paths with, and culturally.
The Uncle G's over there.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had was Black Sand. Why that name?
Because firstly, I wanted something that had an earthy element to it, something that's part of this universe, but was unique. If that makes sense. So like, I mean, think of Universal Pictures. It's like this brand, you know, it's like, I just wanted something that has a name that you could feel like it's part of you, it's part of this earth, but also unique at the same time. So Black Sand is very rare. Like there are only certain parts of the world. Yeah,
actually. Death Stranding, Black Sand, right? Yeah. It's a video game. I'll send you a link. It's okay. We're geeks over here.
Clearly, I'm not part of that world.
Slowly, you never know. All right. Let's touch base with Salma. Because now this is where you were entirely leading the project, right?
Salma season, yeah.
What was your experience like with that?
Look, so prior to Salma, we made a TikTok series. So actually,
the same character, right?
No, different character. So let me just go. So when I started Black Sand Pictures, we made a short film called The Ninth Tower. The Ninth Tower is about a monster. No, I'm joking. We made a short film called The Ninth Tower, which was independently produced. I didn't get funding from anywhere. I just knew that I wanted to make a film to launch the company with.
So your own money?
Yeah. I had a job that I was a production manager.
Okay.
Working on SBS documentaries. That was my full-time job, while I was also doing my master's degree at the same time.
And you did masters in?
Arts management.
Okay.
Yeah. This was during COVID. So I registered my company in 2019. 2020 COVID happened. Couldn't film what I thought I was going to film the following year, later that year. And so end of 2020 is when I filmed The Ninth Tower, because that's when the lockdown restrictions started to ease.
And The Ninth Tower was about?
Was about a true incident that happened in Melbourne. It was about the hard lockdown incident where, in these housing commission flats, tenants were actually not given any kind of warnings about a hard lockdown where they couldn't leave their apartment to get essentials or anything, fresh air, and anyone who was outside their apartment couldn't go back into their homes. So families were separated, like mothers couldn't go to visit their children in hospital. People who had asthma or needed to buy baby formula milk or diapers or like essential medication couldn't actually go get their groceries or the things that they need.
Yeah, COVID was a big psyop.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, so the film revolved around that particular incident.
A lot of people suffered, yeah?
100%. It was a human rights violation that the state government did against the community there.
Okay. And how long did that take to film?
The filming itself was 2 full days. The scripting took a few weeks because there was a lot of like community consultation, understanding of, incidents, because even though it was a scripted film, there were certain scenes that were actual depictions of things that
happened. A lot of research, hands-on research that you had to do.
Yeah, so just confirming, just really like asking about, what was the context of this incident, like, what was happening. But then there were other parts which were just, scripted stuff that you would do in terms of forming a character and that character's life and world. And
fair enough. And that now, I guess, so that was also a project that now you fully owned and worked.
Yeah, so that was the first one under Black Sand Pictures. Okay. Found was under a different initiative, and Black Sand Pictures, Ninth Tower was under Black Sand.
And then Salma came up, right?
And then Matched came up. So Salma, I know it's a bit confusing because we got development funding for Salma in 2019, but it didn't get produced until 2022.
Okay. So then Matched was
a TikTok series. It was a romantic comedy series.
Yes. And how was that experience doing something for TikTok?
It was fun. I mean,
it's very unique though. Like you don't hear many folks doing stuff for TikTok.
Especially in filmmaking, you can be a bit of a snob. Like, oh, I didn't make content for TikTok. Yeah. I want to make like films for the Cannes Film Festival, which by the way, Cannes has a TikTok initiative now. Really? By the way, FYI, for TikTok short films, you can actually premiere it at the Cannes Film Festival.
That's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah. So
And how was your experience with TikTok, getting it produced on there?
It was. I just remember Matched as being such a fun project. Like, it was so much fun. Like, even writing it, casting it, it was a blast. Like, I think looking back, I'm like, that was so much fun, and I want to do it again. Season 3.
Okay, so that was again under the Black Sand. So now the ball's rolling.
Under Black Sand, we made season 1 independently funded and produced. Season 2, we got funded to make that. We got funded by the state government agency, the federal government agency, and TikTok actually invested in our series.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so they took notice.
Yeah.
Of how well you did. So season 3 has to come now.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I'll have to convince my writer, Naz, if you're watching this.
So you've put in all this work. You've done would you consider it web-based series, right?
Yeah.
You still want to do a feature film because that was something that you...
I want to do lots of features. And now we're transitioning into the long-form content. So we're working on developing TV series, feature films. Yeah.
Anything in the pipeline you can maybe tell us about?
Not quite. Yeah, but I think what I can share is maybe... Look, I'm really excited about a romantic comedy film that we want to film here in Kenya, inshallah, soon. I'm excited about another TV series, which is a dark comedy series. And the theme is death, which is going to be fun.
And, okay, you mentioned Kenya. You officially came here 2 weeks ago to make an announcement. Mm-hmm. And it's already been announced, but we'll say Coffee Pump is the first place you did it. What was that announcement about Black Sand Pictures?
I guess the announcement was about that we're here and we're ready for business. We want to tell Kenyan stories. We want to, export Kenyan culture, East African culture. We want the world to know about us. We want to celebrate our heritage, take it to the rest of the world. And, just share our stories, really. That's what it's all about. And just have fun while doing it. I just want it to be fun. I'm at that phase of my life where I'm like, I don't want to work hard anymore. I just want to have fun.
And that's good. That I mean, when you have fun with what you're doing, it just makes it more, how do I say it, more rewarding in a way, because you wake up excited for the day. Also,
having said that, like filmmaking, when we watch it from the outside and we see the end result, it shows the energy like of that film. Like if you've genuinely had a good time on set, it will come through.
Right.
But with everything, even a TikTok series or YouTube web series, it's a lot of effort. And you would know, even with this podcast, when people watch it, they don't realize what goes behind.
There's quite a lot that
setting
goes
this
into
up.
it, so.
And
In fact, that would possibly lead me to my next question. But in fact, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. But the process of making a film, all right, it's not very privy to many folks what's involved. Could you possibly walk us through what the pre-production looks like, the production and the post? What's actually involved? Let's say...
Well, it depends. Are you asking from a context of a producer, director, actor, like sound recordist? Like which perspective do you want?
I'm looking from your perspective now.
My perspective,
yeah.
okay. My perspective, which is usually the producer-director hat, predominantly, I am involved in the filmmaking process from literally the start to the finish at this stage. So when we have a concept, when I have a concept, or we have an idea as a team within the company, it's a seed essentially, and you have to see whether this is a fruit of like the flavor of the month or the season, depending on, you just have to test that idea out and do a bit of a workshop, a brainstorming session
with fellow filmmakers.
So I have a team, a very small team. So I have a development executive as part of Black Sand Pictures, and whenever we have an idea or a concept, we would then have a meeting and be like, let's discuss this idea. Is there potential in it, and are we going to be able to take it to market to sell it?
Okay. So you brainstorm the session, you touch base on key points you feel. Is this applicable to what's relevant today? Will people like it? So on and so forth. You agree, okay, fine, it's worth doing. What do you do then next? Do you formulate a script?
Well, not yet.
Okay.
Because if you want to go down the route of getting a production funded and receiving investment, it's a very different process to you going ahead and producing it without any like external investment.
So you get
funding.
like a pitch deck done before.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like presentation themes, this and that. You raise funding. That's when now you start producing a script.
Yep. So you raise funding for development, and you will get funding for writing the first draft script. So if it's a TV series, you would apply for funding to do a brainstorm session, week-long brainstorm session. Now, not just with you and that one development executive, you also bring in a team of writers and story producers. You're in that room for 3-4 days, and then you will refine. You will, in that brainstorm session, you will come out with, okay, now we've figured out who our character is and what the story is, what the story arc is for the entire season of the TV series, including story arc for, say, the first all the episodes. And then you will do a breakdown of what the pilot episode will look like. So you've got an idea of the overall series, but now you're going to discuss the pilot episode. But actually, before you even do the brainstorm session, if there's any like research that you need to do, if like, for example, the series that we're currently working on is about death, and now, because the character is Muslim, there's going to be a lot of cultural and religious kind of elements that we needed to do research on. So we actually had a workshop with the sheikh who flew down to Australia from a different country and did like a 2-day seminar for us, where he gave us like literally the A to Z of death and janaza and funerals and ghusl and all of that. And we actually had like a dummy where we saw how the body would be washed and how you would wrap it. Just so for us as the writers and creators, we need to know what we're creating, and we need to like have the right knowledge and right information when you're developing a story and a character. So certain things you will need to do research, other things you may not. So it really just depends on what you're working on. But this development takes a long time. So now, after you do your research week, you do your brainstorm week, and then you've broken down the pilot episode, and you kind of have an idea of how many scenes you're going to have, what's going to happen in each scene. You do a scene breakdown. So it's essentially 20 pages of, think of it as like you're reading a book. You're reading a synopsis essentially of every single scene. And then you read that, you're like, okay, let's break that down further. What are the scenes that we need to take out? What do we retain? What do we change? Then you analyze that, reevaluate, and then you go off and write the first draft script.
Okay.
Then you write your first draft script. Everyone on the team will read it, give notes and feedback, and then you'll do a second draft script based on the feedback received, and then you do a final polish, and that's your first, just the pilot episode done. You take your pilot episode plus your pitch Bible for the series, you take it to market and shop it around and see who wants to buy this.
But you've not shot anything by then. You just have a pitch deck idea.
It's just a pitch deck and a pilot script.
Okay. Then
Draft.
Then basically it goes to the highest bidder in a way.
Yeah. So you take it to distributors, streamers, pitch it to them.
There's a lot more involved in it. If you look at Netflix shows right now, they're just churning out constantly. Does the quality get affected with the speed at which they're doing it versus going through the more traditional route where you're a bit more cautious with what you put out? The quality of content is a lot higher versus now the streaming giants just pumping out content. What's sort of your take on that?
It's really interesting because, I think Netflix has definitely opened up so many doors and avenues for creatives and different kinds of storytelling.
Correct.
Because now they have an audience that's not very territorial in terms of like, we can only play this series at 8 p.m. every Thursday night on this channel. Like, it's bingeable. People watch an entire season
in one sitting,
and from anywhere in the world. Like today, if you look at South Korean dramas, like they're doing massively on Netflix. Turkish shows. Like language is no longer a barrier. Culture is no longer a barrier. You're no longer restricted by watch it at this time on this day.
Correct. You're getting it through as many eyeballs as possible.
Yeah, and so your audiences are also growing. The appetite is increasing. As a service provider, they do need to feed that massive appetite that they have created. So they do have a responsibility from their end to kind of keep, because if I'm a subscriber and I'm paying, $10 a month or $15 a month, I want it to be worth my dollar.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
So there is that element where you do need to service your clients. But now the question about the quality, I think that's very subjective because everyone's tastes are different and our tastes evolve. Sometimes I'll watch something and I'm like, that was really bad. But then a few months later, I'll watch it again. I'm like, oh, I really enjoyed it.
True.
So it's so hard with these things because there's no like, this is right and this is correct.
I guess the take is ultimately they're widening the area of the pond. And what's happening is more people are getting in, more people are getting exposed. Naturally, there are positives and negatives with that, but it is what people are demanding, right? I want to sort of now segue as we're coming to the closure towards this. You've obviously told me that the genres you want to look at are comedy as well. There's also, I forget, sorry, you briefly mentioned that there's this comedy aspect and there's was it a murder mystery? What was it?
The dark comedy series.
Are there any other genres you'd like to explore?
Well, on our slate, we have all kinds of things. We have dramas, we have comedies, we have like the dark comedy series. We have an action thing going on.
Tom Cruise?
Listen, my lips will be sealed.
And are you planning on shooting that here? Are you planning on shooting that?
Well, I think majority at this stage of our slate is based in Australia with some international kind of possibilities, whether it's in the Middle East. Like Saudi Arabia is another region that we're heavily focusing on in terms of like we really want to work in that region. We want to collaborate with Saudi Arabia and we're making really good connections and progress in that region. And then Kenya and I guess the sub-Sahara African region in more widely is our second, I guess, is another region of focus.
I can't wait to see you at the Oscars.
Inshallah.
Where you say, Sajid, thank you for giving me the step up with the Coffee Pump podcast.
I'm getting emotional. Sajid, thank you so much for this.
It's good. Practice makes perfect. I have a few more questions as we segue now towards the end, but these are more rapid fire styles, right?
Oh my God. Is the fan working now?
Okay. Director you'd love to collaborate with someday?
Well, there are a lot of directors that I'd want to have under Black Sand Pictures production. But I would say the top of my list would be, I think, Ava DuVernay.
Which films has she done?
She has made Selma. It's on Netflix. When They See Us. It's another... that series. I started watching it, but I couldn't because it's just so hard-hitting. And recently she made a film called Origin, which I happened to watch at the Red Sea International Film Festival in Saudi Arabia. But she really tackles a lot of the deep political themes, which I absolutely love. But I also like her storytelling. Like there's a lot of depth and heart in it.
Okay, fair enough.
She has a very strong voice.
Those are movies then we'll add them here for folks to check out. Dream location for shooting a film? Meru.
Well, I think
Think about it. Meru is the
Meru,
best place.
not Meru, but definitely a location in Kenya. I really want to shoot something in Lamu.
Ooh, that's nice.
There's a lot of history and untold, like that culture is not really exposed. So I want to do something there.
Okay, perfect. Favorite film of all time? Don't say kuch kuch hota hai.
Listen, can I say The Lion King?
Yeah.
The Lion King is, it was such a, I don't know how to explain. Like it's a film that really, you learn a lot. If you watch that film as a film student, as like just a human, you learn so many life lessons. But if you're interested in film, I think The Lion King is such a good film to watch. The original one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Lion King was the shiznit. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
None. Skip.
How dare you?
Skip.
Willem Kajum Leviosa. No,
And now I've disappeared.
Lord of the Rings? No?
I mean, I'd rather go with Harry Potter.
Legolas and those golden locks? No way.
Harry Potter.
Aragorn and that brunette hair of his.
Can you let me speak? I thought I'm the guest. No, I mean, if I had to choose between the two, I would say Harry Potter, but neither, to be honest. Not really my genre. I'm not really into the fantasy kind of.
Okay.
I like the real stuff.
Favorite
reality.
Okay. I still think you should watch Lord of the Rings. Have you watched it though?
No, not really into it. I mean, even like seeing those books turned me off. How big were those?
Just try the Lord of the Rings. Just watch it, please.
I really value my time, and I have to be very.
To be fair, it's like
strategic.
9 hours worth of film. Yes.
Not happening.
Fair enough. Favorite TV series?
Oh.
Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad. It's funny how I'm trying to coerce your answers.
Yeah, you really are. Like, I'm so offended. Does he do this to the other guests?
Exclusively.
Wait, favorite TV series? Okay, maybe not my favorite. Oh, actually, yeah. I really, really love House of Cards on Netflix. It's a political drama series.
Yeah.
And I want to make something like that one day. It's just so engaging, and at the end of every single episode, your jaw will literally be on the floor.
House of Cards is pretty good.
Yeah.
I would say that. Though when the main character, I forget his name,
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey left, I do feel there was a slight...
I think I stopped watching it season 4. Like I'm trying to get into the next ones, but yeah. But I think season 1 was probably the best one, in my opinion.
If you could remake any classic film, which one would it be? Don't say. I don't you dare say it. Don't you dare say it.
Since I'm not allowed to
say it.
No, it's not kuch hota hai. But I think I really would love to make a remake, Pretty Woman, the Julia Roberts film. I
watched that recently, by the way. I thought it was a remarkable movie. Yeah. She was gorgeous in that film. Oh,
she's stunning.
Who would you replace Julia Roberts with?
Damn. Well, firstly, I would change her character slightly. Like, I wouldn't make her an escort.
What would you do?
I don't know, but I think the thing, I think also it's not about her profession, it's about her energy, right? She brings in this kind of like, I live life for the moment type of thing, and he's very disciplined, and he's got like structure, and she's like, you know, she's just life. She's literally life. I just love that about her. I don't know yet. I haven't found the pretty woman yet.
There's an Indian actress. In fact, I think she's incredibly gorgeous. Vish, I'm going to do research. You just place her up here. She would be perfect, man. I don't watch Bollywood movies, so I don't know, but I have a picture etched somewhere on the back of my mind.
Is this your obsession, like secret crush?
Yeah, you could say that. Is it Kriti Sanon? Is that her?
I wouldn't really cast her for that.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, like...
Fair enough.
I think I would... I don't know who I would go with. Maybe Tyler.
I have no idea who that is.
I think Tyler's... She's a South African singer. She released a song called Water, and she won a Grammy.
Okay, so we're going to put Kriti Sanon versus...
Tyler.
And then we see...
I think Tyler would be cute. Yeah. Is she?
Okay, so we're going to place both of them here, and we let the audience decide who's prettier.
Okay.
Who would you let play between... in fact, this is the way to phrase it. When we're recasting Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, we have Kriti Sanon and...
Tyler.
Who would you guys like?
It's Tyler.
Right, let's see.
I already know we won. Like, I won. You lost, Sajid.
Fair enough. I'll give that to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the award.
Yes. Last question. Shah Rukh Khan and Tom Cruise both want to be the lead in your next film.
I mean, it's a daily struggle. I'm dealing with this. Like, it's... Look, I mean...
Give me one answer.
Why would you even ask that question?
You want to get the Oscar award. This is part of the process. These are prerequisites. These are questions they ask you.
It's obviously going to be Shah Rukh Khan.
What? Not Tom Cruise?
No.
Tom Cruise literally hanged himself from a plane and took off just to be in your film.
Good for him. Try harder next time.
I think Shah Rukh Khan's overrated.
You're just jealous of Shah Rukh Khan. You wish you were Shah Rukh Khan.
Maybe. Let's put it that way. I still think Tom Cruise would make a better film.
That's why I'm the director, not you.
I'm going to get so shat on in the comments if this one goes.
Yeah.
But Tom Cruise is better than Shah Rukh Khan. And this is coming from an Indian.
Sajid.
Astaghfirullah.
Go, repent to God right now.
Kuth, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Likewise, thank you.
I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. And yes, I'm available to star in your next film.
Keep auditioning until,
Yeah, this is like the 7th audition where she's like, nope, next. And the funny thing is, I come in dressed as someone else. She's like, is that Sajid? Is that Sajid again? But it's been...
It's a bit different.
Yeah, why does he have curly hair now? What's going on? It's a pleasure having you here.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we've been trying to do this for a while.
You didn't want to invite me first because I wasn't good enough for your show.
Yeah, but then now I saw the awards you're winning. I was like, okay, now she's up to my standards. No, but I love everything you're doing. I love everything you stand for. You inspire me. And I know the sky's the limit. Inshallah, you'll do so much. Inshallah. And I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Guys, that's been Coffee Pump. We have no idea which episode. Catch you in the next one.